Welcome to the Criminalia podcast. I'm Maria Tremarchi.
And I'm Holly Fry. Together, we invite you into the dark and winding corridors of historical true crime.
Each season, we explore a new theme, from poisoners to art thieves.
We uncover the secrets of history's most interesting figures, from legal injustices to body snatching.
And tune in at the end of each episode as we indulge in cocktails and mocktails inspired by each story.
Listen to Criminalia on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Nicola Coughlan, and for BBC Radio 4, this is history's youngest heroes. Rebellion, risk, and the radical power of youth.
She thought, right, I'll just do it. She thought about others rather than herself.
12 stories of extraordinary young people from across history.
There's a real sense of urgency in them, that resistance has to be mounted, it has to be mounted now.
Follow history's youngest heroes wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, my name is Vanessa Handy. I'm a producer at Wonder Media Network, and I'm so excited to be guest hosting this week's episodes of Womanica. This Black History Month, we're talking about Renaissance women. As part of the famed cultural and artistic Harlem Renaissance movement, these women found beauty in an often ugly world. Standing in the small attic studio, a woman picks up a piece of clay. Dozens of ideas fight to get out of her hands. In the glow of a wide window, she puts the plaster down on her high-top table and begins to work. From tiny dioramas to life-size sculptures and everything in between. Today's Womanican spent her life immortalizing the full range of the African-American experience through art. Please welcome Vaux Warrick Fuller. Vaux was born in Philadelphia in 1887. Her parents were successful entrepreneurs who owned their own barbershop. They encouraged Vaux's interest in art, and she dabbled in music, drawing, and dance. Her father took her to art museums, where Vaux's eyes lit up with excitement from the sculptures and paintings. For college, she chose the Pennsylvania School of Industrial Art. Even as a teenager, Vaux's work focused on themes around the Black experience. When she graduated, her pieces landed her honorable mentions, money, and prizes for best work in modeling. She also won an award to fund another year of education. After 5 years in college, the next natural step was to study in Paris, which was common at the time for American artists. She secured accommodations at the American Girls Club before she left. At 22 years old, Vaux braved the week-long journey across the Atlantic Ocean by herself. A close family friend and fellow artist, Henry Asua Tanner, agreed to pick her up when she arrived. But when that day came, Vaux and Henry missed each other in the hustle and bustle of the train station. So, Vaux found her accommodations by herself. When she arrived at the American Girls Club, an attendant led her through the beautiful gardens and the ornate rooms of the building. She was brought to the club's director, who was happy to welcome Vaux. That is, until Vaux removed her traveling veil and revealed her face. The director exclaimed, "You didn't tell me that you were not a white girl. Why didn't you tell me that you were not a white girl?" Shocked, Vaux replied, "I felt that I, as an American girl, was entitled to come here." But she was not. Later that day, her friend, Henry Asua Tanner, finally arrived at the American Girls Club to make sure Vaux was all right. And together, they left. And Vaux didn't look back. Once she was settled into new accommodations, she rolled up her sleeves and got to work. Vaux didn't waste a second in Paris. She studied under many prominent teachers and at several art academies around the city, pulling together a wide range of skills and techniques. The connections she made were invaluable. She became friends with W.E.B. Du Bois, who had Vaux fix a tableau for the World's Fair in Paris in 1900. The next year, she became Auguste Rodin's protégé and spent 3 years studying with him. Vaux became an it girl after that. Asua encouraged her to showcase at the American Women's Art Association's annual exhibit. Her bust of John the Baptist stood out for being the only sculpture. It received high praise. The exhibit was also at the same club that had denied her accommodation. The French press gave her a nickname, the Sculptor of Horrors, because of how emotionally charged her pieces were. Although her work was praised over in America too, there were frequent racist and overtones. But Mida's career continued to ramp up. Bouncing around Paris, she had solo shows and exhibited in a number of prominent galleries and salons. Finally, with so many credentials under her belt, she booked a boat home. But the United States didn't welcome her with open arms. Back in Philly, gallery after gallery rejected her, claiming her pieces were too domestic. Nevertheless, Mida's Paris connections paid off. In 1907, she was commissioned by the United States government to make dioramas for the Jamestown Tercentennial Exposition. Mida made 14 unique scenes with more than 130 plaster figures. Each diorama depicted a different area of Black American history. Viewers could look at the first enslaved people landing in Jamestown, then take a few steps and see them escaping through the Underground Railroad, and finish with the dining room of a modern, middle-class family. In Mida's work, Black folks were the main characters in their own defined worlds. 2 years later, she married a prominent doctor. They moved to Framingham, Massachusetts. Her husband wanted her to put aside her artistic life and focus on her domestic duties. Soon after, a warehouse fire broke out back in Philadelphia and destroyed 16 years' worth of her work. Mida was devastated. While some might have given up, Mida channeled her pain into more art. Now a mother, Mida found ways to separate her dueling duties and turned their attic into a small studio. Although secluded in the countryside, Mida didn't slow down. Keeping to the true nature of a Renaissance woman, Mida got involved in theater design as a stage artist in Boston. She created exquisite sets and designed the lighting for performances, all while writing 6 plays under the pseudonym Danny Deaver. In 1921, the Harlem Renaissance was dawning. W.E.B. Du Bois commissioned her to make a piece for the America's Making exposition in New York City. He originally asked her to base it on African Americans' musical and industrial contributions in the United States. But Mida had her own ideas. As part of the Americans of Negro Lineage exhibit, Mida unveiled a life-size sculpture of a woman wearing an ancient Egyptian headdress. Her feet and legs are wrapped like a mummy, but her right hand is beginning to unravel her garments. The woman's face looks out as if toward the future, with a dignified gaze. It was titled Ethiopia. The sculpture honored the Pan-African kingdoms of the past, while signifying, in its title, the only African country to not be colonized. Mida said about the piece, "Here was a group who had once made history, and now, after a long sleep, was awaking, gradually unwinding the bandage of its mummied past and looking out on life again, expectant, but unafraid, and with at least a graceful gesture." In the 1950s, Mida's husband suffered from tuberculosis. She put down her tools to take care of him. After he passed, she picked them up again and found inspiration during the Civil Rights era, crafting tributes of the movement. As a widow, she also filled her days writing poetry, scribbling lines and ideas in her diaries. Mida passed away in 1968. She was 91 years old. Today, she is considered one of the first prominent African American sculptors, and her piece, Ethiopia, is considered the first Pan-African American work of art. All month, we are talking about Renaissance women. For more information, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Womanica Podcast. Special thanks to Liz and Jenny Kaplan for letting me sit in. Talk to you tomorrow.
Welcome to the Criminalia podcast. I'm Maria Tremarchi.
And I'm Holly Fry. Together, we invite you into the dark and winding corridors of historical true crime.
Each season, we explore a new theme, from poisoners to art thieves.
We uncover the secrets of history's most interesting figures, from legal injustices to body snatching.
And tune in at the end of each episode as we indulge in cocktails and mocktails inspired by each story.
Listen to Criminalia on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Nicola Coughlan, and for BBC Radio 4, this is history's youngest heroes. Rebellion, risk, and the radical power of youth.
She thought, right, I'll just do it. She thought about others rather than herself.
12 stories of extraordinary young people from across history.
There's a real sense of urgency in them, that resistance has to be mounted now.
Follow History's Youngest Heroes wherever you get your podcasts.